War Eagle, War Rapport family. I'm your host, C-Dub, and today's show is brought to you by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Please be sure to check them out at gwt2energy.com. The live tailgate starts now.
You are now listening to the unmistakable sound of the War Rapport Weekend Tailgate. It's your boy. I Jones. Be real. C-Dub. Mike G. Get ready. Sit on back as we bring you the War Rapport Weekend Tailgate.
War Eagle, War Rapport family, Auburn family. Thanks for tuning in to the best tailgate on the internet, the Weekend Tailgate by the War Rapport. Guys, come on in. Please smash that like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Please do that. What people will do if you're Auburn family, drop your city, your location. If you're not, we just want to hear from you guys. And please, if you don't do anything else, please share our video. And you could do that by adding us. If you're on Twitter at the War Rapport, you can hit hashtag TWR Tailgate and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. That would help us out a ton. Also, please be sure to share this on Facebook as well. We got a lot of content coming up this upcoming week. Mike G, please be sure to let us know what's coming up, sir.
So we just dropped our part 2 of our interview with Cooper Wallace. This is a highly entertaining interview. I definitely want to thank Cooper for taking some time to come on and talk to us about, all things Auburn, development, recruiting. We covered a lot of things in this interview. So if you are an insider, this interview is live for you as of yesterday. Everybody else tomorrow morning. Please become an insider. We've got some exciting content coming up in the next couple months for you guys. We're continuing to evolve as you guys continue to support. We are growing our content for you. So there are some things that will be exclusive only to insiders. Grab yourself an insider membership for $5.99 so you can make sure you have access to that. Our GoFundMe is live. You can find this link in the about section of our YouTube channel, as well as the link to our merch store so you can get your weight up gear. But lastly, if you've not seen one of these, chop it up with the pros, here's a little sneak peek.
The faith is gonna bring that safety down, but that safety did a good job of recovering and picking up the over route.
What do you need to make sure that you're aware of in case something doesn't happen?
He's got to look back to the left.
Right.
Looking at the center's footwork, with whichever way the center's sliding, he's going to step with that foot first. But the center and the right guard have got to see that quicker.
When you have Tank leak out, Tank is going to catch that ball every time they do it. This over route that they're running is going to be open.
Woo! Listen, you do not want to miss this Chop It Up. We are breaking down 8A film with Chris Todd on Thursday. It's a lot of fun to watch Ike and Chris break down film. The last Chop It Up we did with him was highly educational. And we wanted to take, this is kind of a bonus Chop It Up. So we wanted to take some time to bring Chris back on. He's got a really great mind for football and talk a little bit about what we saw from our quarterbacks during A-Day so that we can put a little bit of that in perspective. Back to you.
Dope. And shout out to everyone in the comment section, man. We appreciate you guys. Even if we can't highlight every one of your comments, we appreciate you guys for doing that and creating banter while we banter about Auburn football. Guys, today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. Of course, the NFL draft is just in the rearview mirror now. And we're also going to talk about a former Auburn player who entered the transfer portal. But first and foremost, let's talk about the recap of the NFL draft, man. And the results are in. There's no more speculation. we got guys in the NFL from the past year, and we see that Anthony Schwartz was the first pick, the guy to come off the board for Auburn, round 3, the 91st pick, followed by Jamien Sherwood the next day, and in the 5th round at, I believe that is actually the 146th pick.
Yeah.
KJ Britt was the 176th, followed by Seth Williams in the 6th round at the 219th pick. Also noted is Eli Stove signing as an undrafted free agent with the Chargers, as well as Jordyn Peters with the Jets as an undrafted free agent as well. And I've seen a few of you guys comment on Jordyn Peters. Happy for him. We see, I believe we saw, I missed where the comment was, but a few of you guys have been commenting on Jordyn Peters, and happy for him. I'm happy for Eli Stove as well. These guys are getting an opportunity to prove that they belong at the next level. You got your shot, so let's see if they can make the most of it. So definitely want to get you guys' thoughts on the Jordyn Peters and Eli Stove before we get into the guys who we've been talking about for the past week or so. Any thoughts on that, B. Will?
Happy that those guys got a shot. Jordyn Peters was a noted special teamer, a lot of success blocking punts, and we saw that he didn't get a lot of time on the field defensively until we had some injuries really last year or the year before that. And I was just glad that that somebody else saw that type of effort. He's a stand-up guy. He is a consistent effort guy. So I'm glad that he got that shot, because a lot of guys aren't heralded. This wasn't a case of him being in the wrong system or anything. He's got a lot of good measurables, but he just wasn't the most explosive athlete. And without those measurables and without putting plays on tape, film wise and coverage and schemes, this is what you're going to have to be responsible for. They still need consistent special teams guys. That's necessary. You got to go out there and give that effort, especially when you don't want to have to put your top tier best athletes, your money guys on special teams. So you got guys that make a living on special teams. So I'm glad he got that shot. And the same thing for Eli Stove, man, because maybe you think what if a lot with guys. Eli Stove, he didn't hurt that knee. If he's as fast and as explosive as he was before he got hurt, where would he be right now? And even after the injuries, he came back last year, and even though it was a down offensive year, he was very consistent. He got what was there for him to get when it was available. He caught everything that came his way. We were plagued by drops a lot last year, but it wasn't from Eli Stove. And so I think that maturity, that consistency, I think it will do well for him. I hope he sticks there. I hope it's enough for him to stick there, because the NFL is just a bunch of freak athletes, and he might not be that freak athlete anymore. But I hope he can find a place, whether it's LA or somebody else, and just stick and stay in the league. And I'm real happy for those guys.
All right, talk to me, man. What are your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I saw a comment out here asking what was the biggest surprise in the draft, and I guess I want to attach it from that angle. Shout out to our guy Devin Dawson who commented that. So first and foremost, definitely happy for, as B. Will said, happy for all the guys who got drafted, and hope they have much success at the next level. I think the biggest surprise for me was how far down the draft board, and we'll talk about this, that Seth Williams dropped. I think I was pleasantly surprised that everybody came off the board. I did have some worries towards the end whether or not a couple of guys were even going to get drafted. As it got in later in the picks, I was like, are these guys going to get it? So definitely a surprise right there for me, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got at the next level. I think all of them are talented enough to do something special. It's just going to be on them to work now. Like, the work is completely on them at this point. Nobody else can do anything for you. We've talked to some of, if you watched some of our Chop It Up with the Pros, you hear guys talk about how, I think it was Devin specifically talking about how position group, I don't remember whether this was on or off camera. We talk so much with these guys off camera. Those two things kind of blur together in my head about how with position groups specifically, like the wide receiver coaches in the NFL are not the same type of tutors that they are in college, right? So when you get to the NFL, they expect you to just come in and do your job. They're going to show you the film. They're going to watch tape with you, and they're going to go over the playbook. But as far as you being a tactician, and really going out there and being technical with your craft, that's on you to get it in the off season. That's on you to get it from other players. So those guys, their work ethic's going to have to shine through as they get into this next level, and I hope to see them do that.
What about you, Mike G?
No surprises. No surprises for me in this draft. They for Jordan Peters, and Stove, it's just you just got to work. That's it, man. You got an opportunity. So the NFL to me is a lot less political. They really do just want to play the best guy. So if you can get out there and you can outwork somebody, your opportunity may be a little bit more limited than a guy who got drafted, top 3. But if you can make a roster, and again, injuries happen, I feel like a lot more frequently at the next level, and then get an opportunity to get in there, just outwork everybody. I think that definitely gets noticed. Auburn certainly has a lot of examples of guys who were undrafted free agents that went in and just outworked people and got spots on NFL rosters. So it's not impossible. Somebody thought enough of them to sign them to, a free agent contract. And so, you just have to take advantage of what will be, likely a limited opportunity to show that, you're worth a roster spot, and, my heart goes out to these guys. I mean, I know it was a difficult decision to decide whether to go or whether to stay, right? And normally what they tell player in the past, it used to be, you apply for, like a draft evaluation. This is before you sign with a free agent or do any of that stuff. And the NFL's recommendation to kids was, if you get anything less than a 3rd round grade, go back to school. Now, obviously, not everybody takes that advice because we got 7 rounds in the draft and not everybody can go in the top 3. But these are complex decisions that these guys have to make. A Stove, I think, both of them would have had another year had they decided to return. So, I mean, we'll get into it later, but, they did what they felt like was in their best interest. So I always hope that decision works out in the long run for them deciding to make it.
Agreed. And with that, man, let's talk about what actually happened, and we can talk player by player. Anthony Schwartz, as I mentioned, was selected by the Browns in the 3rd round, 91st pick. And from what I've been reading, articles on the Browns and about their selection, he's considered to be, of course, a bit of a project. They're not expecting him to be the guy, obviously, but the expectation is down the road he can emerge as a dependable target for Baker Mayfield in a few years. Of course, he has some veterans that he's behind that he can learn from: Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. I mean, he's got some guys that he can learn the game from, and learning those routes, learning how to run those routes at the next level. He has a prime opportunity to emerge as a favorable wide receiver target at Cleveland. So I like where he stacks up. His speed is one of the things that many people raved about. We talked about it last week, but I want to hear from you guys, and I'll start with you, Mike G. What do you think about? You said it was no surprise where people landed, but what are your thoughts about Schwartz being in Cleveland?
You know what? I think that there were definitely worse situations he could have landed up in. So you're going to a team with 2 solid running backs. You've got some veteran wide receivers there, and he should be able to make a splash there. If Baker Mayfield continues to develop as a quarterback, this may not be a bad situation for him in Cleveland. Speed still kills. I think that's ultimately why he got drafted. I mean, because his draft range, if you read the different, publications that were trying to predict where he would go, was very wide, right? Some people thought as high as 2nd round, other people as low as 6th round. So to get drafted in the 3rd round, based on what Devin Aromashu told us, they expect him to play in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that is a high praise for any player to get drafted in the top 3. So he's just got to go out there. My worry for Schwartz is just health, right? When you're a speed guy and that's your primary weapon at the weight that he'll play at, he's got to stay healthy. to be of use to them. I mean, I don't know that could be said of any player, but like, he's got you. It's hard to go out there and run fast when you're hurt. So he's got to stay healthy. I hope that they have a good plan for him in the weight room to, bulk him up so that he can take NFL hits, but not cost him speed. He was underrated as a receiver and as a route runner. I don't think he really got a chance to show that off in the system that he played in. I think I would say for all these receivers, there was not enough on tape to evaluate, which is why everybody got taken where they did. Yeah. Right. You got to dig a little deeper for the evaluations, and you really had to see some potential beyond what was on tape. So I think that the Browns did that, and he's got a tremendous opportunity there with a team that has a ton of potential, a ton of youth, and some veterans. You've got a young quarterback there. They're hungry. At times last year, I mean, those guys went on the field. They had an attitude like they could beat anybody, like they weren't just the Browns, and so. Him going into that situation there, I think there's some question about whether Beckham is going to stay there or not as well, too. So there may be some additional opportunity for him to hit the field, at least in the first year, maybe even in some utility type situations. But he's got the speed to play this year, and it was not in question. He was definitely the fastest guy in this draft. It wasn't even close.
Right.
I can't imagine that they're going to look at that and want to wait too long to try to utilize him to add some kind of dynamic to that offense.
Right.
I like it.
B, what are your thoughts, man?
Same as what Mike said. I mean, the leadership there with Jarvis Landry not only being a very good wide receiver, a skilled wide receiver, not just in being a speed guy, but in reading defenses, route running, like you need that. Odell Beckham Jr., whether he's going to be there or not. I mean, hey, get through a camp with ODB, get some preseason with these guys, and you get to see how some of the best receivers in the game work in an offense that's already up and running. This is not a rebuild project for that team. You're not going to be expected to be a wide receiver number one. You're going to be expected to get in where you fit in, and you're going to get some opportunities after you get adjusted. And maybe the best thing for him is that they don't expect him to be the best wide receiver in the room when he gets there. So he's got time. An offense that's primarily run, which is, again, good. They're not counting on the receivers to carry the team. I'm sure, their offensive coordinator, I think their head coach is their OC, right? Or he's the offensive guy. He's an offensive guy. So it's a good situation for him. And I'm glad he went there to a team that was already on the upswing. I hate to see guys go to bad teams. Maybe that's the best situation for some guys as far as where you get drafted and what you get paid. But it's the best thing when you can go somewhere where there are quality players at your position that you can learn from that you're not competing with. There's nobody on that team as fast as Anthony Schwartz. ODB is coming off a knee injury. I'm sure he has top end speed, but not like Anthony Schwartz. He has more wide receiver skills that Anthony Schwartz can absorb. Like it's great for him, and I really like that spot for him.
Yeah. You got any different thoughts here, or similar thoughts?
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of summed it up pretty well. The reason why I like this for him is because of the leadership that he can get from a Jarvis Landry, learning just how to be a pro.
Right.
There's always been questions about Baker Mayfield's ability to throw the deep ball. So I do wonder how much they can challenge vertically with Baker Mayfield. But he makes decent decisions, right? So he's a gamer. So that's still a plus. But overall, I think this is a good spot for him to land. And hopefully, he'll go out there and he'll do some damage in his first year. I see a lot of people talking special teams for him as a gunner or as a return specialist. Possibly, I don't know that he's the best kickoff or punt return guy that there could be, but he's definitely got the speed to be able to do some damage in special teams. That's what you typically are going to see from guys that are third round and beyond players. Is that's how you're going to make the field more is in the special teams capacity. Right. So we'll see where they decide to use him. And then the other question for him really is going to be how much he pursues his career as an Olympian, right? Like, is he still going to try to run professionally, and that's going to make it a thing where he's got to balance his time a little differently. So it's going to challenge the coaches to make sure that they're using him wisely in those ways as well, because he doesn't want to mess up that money, because that can be a whole other situation for him. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward.
Agreed. And I expect Cleveland to use him this year a lot like how he has been used. I expect them to use some speed sweeps, some screens. He's going to be getting work there while he's learning how to run other routes as well, as he gets his game up at the next level. So again, congratulations to Anthony Schwartz by being drafted in the 3rd round. I'm proud of you, young man. Please continue to make us proud, War Eagle, to that young fella.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about Jamien Sherwood, next guy, selected in the 5th round, 146 pick. And what was so interesting is immediately after he was drafted, like the Jets began to basically list him as a linebacker. And that was something that we discussed last week, is what is he going to be at the next level? Will he continue to play safety, or will he play linebacker? He's a small guy for a linebacker. So weak side, outside linebacker is what I'm hearing there. And because he's being moved, there's an indication that the Jets doesn't have a lot of depth at the linebacker position. And I'm also hearing that they're switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Some of the articles that I've read with the new defensive coordinator they have there. So it's an opportunity for Sherwood to make a splash and earn some playing time. So I want to start with B. What's your thoughts, B?
I knew Sherwood would not get passed up because he's got that attitude, man. He's got that attitude. He's that guy. We did our pre-draft show on Wednesday, and this was not a surprise. I didn't think he would make it past 5, so 4 was kind of right on the money. Nobody who is willing to hit like that is going to get passed up in the NFL. So that commitment to hitting, to tackling, there was even somebody quoted Kevin Steele, because they asked Kevin Steele about him, and said he's one of the best tacklers I've ever coached, and NFL loves that. So he might be a little slow of foot for a safety, but that's why he's a linebacker. So listen, man, you don't have to make up ground. You're right there in the action. Go. And you know they're going to drop him in coverage from time to time. He's not going to be a liability in coverage like other linebackers would be, because instinctively he's a safety. Well, by experience, he's a safety, but instinctively he's a hitter. It's a great combination of skills to have for somebody who you want to be in multiple spots. So I think it's a great fit for him. I don't know about, well, I say it's a great fit for him. I don't know their defensive coordinator and what he runs, so I can't say it's a great fit for him. I know that he's going to get a chance to play, and I know that they want his skill set, so that's a good thing. Anytime guys bring you in and they want what you got, good. And he's happy to be there, seems like. So, hey, I'm happy for him.
Talk to me, my G.
You know what? Again, no surprises here. All these guys had a range where they would get drafted. And these teams, that you're drafting based on need and based on your own individual evaluation of the player. So he's got an opportunity at the end of the day. I don't have a lot to say here. He's got an opportunity. I think he's a solid player. I think that he's got a good shot here to prove that he can be, an NFL linebacker. As you mentioned, they immediately listed him at linebacker. So I assume that's going to involve some plan to get him to whatever weight they need him at. And he's just got to work hard, man. This is where the work starts. Right. And I think that this is going to be one of the biggest transitions for a lot of these guys when you come out of school and everything is structured for you, and now you're a professional and they will have some structure, but you're expected to do a lot on your own. Nobody's going to be following up behind you on these workouts and a lot of the things that they're going to need to do. You're going to need to take your own diet and nutrition seriously. Right, they'll have resources there for you. Some guys opt out of the team provided structure to go get their own, work with their own trainers, work with their own nutritionists. So whatever's available there to him, just take advantage of it. That's it. It's whether these guys will do well at the next level. There's so many things that just factor into how they're going to do. I think that he has the talent. Right. Can he and will he are two totally different subjects, though. So as far as the can he, yes, absolutely. He can be successful at the next level. Will he? Well, system, coach, injuries, a lot of unknowns, a lot of things outside of the player's control. So control the things that you can control. You can control how hard you work, right? You can control all the extra time that you can put in. You can control how much film you study. You know, and then let the cards fall where they may after that, man. I did not think that he would still be. He wasn't one of those. I mentioned that, you know, as it got toward the end of the draft, there were some guys I was worried about whether they were going to get drafted or not. He wasn't one of them. I knew he was going to come off the board, right? He's just, I mean, there's enough there for somebody to work with. So, you know, somebody would have taken him, but I'm happy for him as well.
What you got, Ike?
Yeah, so I think the New York Jets, if you guys listen to what I said on Wednesday about finding a team that will have a good fit for him, the New York Jets is a great fit for him. They've got a new head coach in Robert Saleh, who I happen to know a lot about. He was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, which I've said many times. He's a 49ers fan. So if you look at what Saleh was able to do with the defense in San Francisco, and you look at a guy like Fred Warner, who actually played safety in college, right? He was a safety in college, but he was a tweener. Fred Warner is one of the best linebackers in the NFL right now under Saleh's tutelage in that defensive scheme. I think he sees a lot of that same ability because Fred Warner is one of those guys who can really do everything. He diagnoses plays really well. He's a really smart tackler. You know, he's going to bring, you know, everything he can to every single play, but he also is good in coverage, right? Like you just don't see that in the linebacker a lot. I anticipate they're going to be using him a lot the same way they use Fred Warner, get him to bulk up, maybe add another 15 to 20 pounds, and he'll be the prototype of what Saleh wants to do with his defense there in New York. So this is a great spot for him to land, honestly. I don't know that he could have landed in a better place other than to go to San Francisco and back up Fred Warner, right? I just don't know that he, you know, was that's just what they do in that scheme a lot is they convert those tweener safeties to linebackers. You see that over and over again with guys that come out of it's really the Pete Carroll tree of defensive folks, like as Saleh was on the defensive staff in Seattle. It's that same tree, that same philosophy of what they want to do, converted safeties to linebackers, guys who can hit really hard but cover really well so that you can be very multiple in the way that you want to play defense. This is a great slot for him.
And linebackers are typically smaller in a 4-3 as opposed to a 3-4. Is that correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it works. To your point,
like I said,
this
is I don't know that he could have landed at a better place because this is the kind of guy that's going to give you a shot as a tweener. If he goes there and works hard and he continues to be as consistent a tackler as he was in college, his NFL days are going to be really bright in that system. So looking forward to it.
I want to highlight a few things before we move on to the next guy. Shout out to you, burner account. Appreciate you, man. As always.
Yeah.
And I believe I like this. We may need to think about this. That's for you, Mike G. We need to send Sherwood some get your weight up gear. I mind sending all of the guys who listen, get your weight up.
Now that they can accept it without getting suspended or in trouble. Absolutely. We'd love to send these guys some stuff.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. I like that. Let's talk about KJ Britt. Selected 5th round, 176 pick. Most people, I kind of already talked about it. If you're past the 3rd round, you're expected to contribute on special teams. A lot of people are seeing him as a person who will be on special teams. But he's in a good situation at the Bucks. He has an opportunity to perhaps play in running situations or early downs where the other team is expected to run the football. But I want to hear starting with you, Ike. What are your thoughts on KJ Britt landing with the Bucks?
Again, I think this is a good spot for him. He doesn't necessarily have the speed that the Bucks have had at linebacker traditionally, but it's a good place where he's not going to be expected, absent of injuries, to come in and contribute day one. He's going to get to learn from, some seasoned pros that have been out there. They are a Super Bowl championship team that are just trying to reload right now in the wake of whatever's going to happen with free agency with that team. So I think this is a good landing spot for him. The scheme is going to be a good fit for him. You look at the one thing I worry about for him is he's a middle linebacker through and through, right? Like he's not going to move to the outside.
Right.
He's not going to come and be a defensive end in anybody's scheme. But if you watch Devin White play, who is the middle linebacker right now for the Bucks, Devin White is faster than KJ Britt is, especially in coverage. And so he's gonna have to learn how to do better dropping back in coverage, because that defense is going to ask him to do that. And if he can't do that consistently enough, he won't see the field unless someone gets injured. So KJ Britt's going to have to figure that out at the next level. But he did, again, there's no questioning his ability to come downhill against the run and his ability to diagnose plays well. It's whether or not he's going to be able to read and react at the NFL level to make sure that he can see the field often enough. But I do like the fit for where he is in this defense specifically. So definitely a good job for him.
Talk to me, Mike G.
You know what? My feelings are exactly the same on Britt as it was on Sherwood. Again, here's a guy, right, who was hurt most of last season, and he had enough talent to still come off the board in the 5th round. So he's definitely going to have an opportunity, right, to play at this level. So again, same thing, man. Work hard, young man. Get in the weight room. Study film. You're not guaranteed a spot. And plenty of 5th rounders get cut before the season starts. Right. You're not guaranteed a spot. So, Britt was one of those guys, during his time at Auburn, I always felt like he could have done more. And there are a lot of factors, that factor into why he didn't do more for us as a linebacker. But, he's still supremely talented. These guys, some of these guys find another gear when they get to the next level that they just couldn't find in school. I think we see a lot of examples of that as well, too. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that next year looks like for KJ.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, B?
Nothing to add. I mean, not too much. He's a leader. He is an alpha, and that has value. And I'm glad he's somewhere on a defense playing with so many other alphas. Devin Bush, I know we said there was another guy. He comes off the edge. Oh, Devin White, I'm sorry. There was a guy, he comes off the edge in Tampa. He had a ridiculous Levante David. They got some monsters on their defense, man.
Yeah, that defense is special.
I mean, that's what dragged Tom Brady through to another championship. And no, I'm not a Tom Brady hater, but I am an Aaron Rodgers fan and give the Rodgers some love. But anyway, I'm glad that he's in a spot similar to Schwartz, where the people who play your position are elite. Mm-hmm. You can learn from them. Now, I don't know how much you can change a guy of his size and give him more fluid hips or give him better feet. At this point, I don't know if you just are what you are. And in this NFL, listen, man, you're going to come across 3 or 4 teams in the league who are just dedicated to being those types of teams. The Browns are one. Tennessee, the Titans are one. Depending on the week, the Patriots can be one where they're just committed to running the ball, and that's what they want to do. And then you have very high value. Outside of that, I don't know if he can stick past that first contract just playing backup duty. I want him to, because he's got the skill set, he's got the mentality, he's got the will to be a great middle linebacker, but he's limited by some measurables. And I want the best for him, just like I want the best for all our guys. So I'm hoping he sticks and does real well.
For me with KJ, it's really going to be about how well he studies film, right? Like if he is able to just recognize what's going on, then you don't have to be twitchy. You can just be there before the ball gets there, right? If he studies film well enough, he's going to play well just because he's got the speed and the size. Like his physical abilities, though they're limited in his abilities to cover, are not limited in size and speed. He's got the right speeds. He's got the right size. He just needs to make sure that he's playing above his pad level on every play. Study, understand where you need to be on a consistent basis, and scheme is going to have a lot to do with it, right? Like, is the coach going to put him in the right positions, right? Like, as long as he knows where he's supposed to be and where he's supposed to be benefits him really well, he's going to do well. And I think Tampa is one of those places where, because you have so many good players around you, he doesn't have to be stellar. He just has to come in there and do his job. It's going to be good, man. I think that in 2 or 3 years, if KJ Britt is committed, will be one of the better linebackers in the NFL, just from his physicality standpoint and his leadership. It's the mental part, right? Because, and I don't question that with KJ. I'm just saying the NFL is a different, like you're graduating to a new level of understanding because the offenses are more simplistic in college, right? So you don't have to know as much stuff, but you got to be on top of it to be, especially a middle linebacker, because everybody's kind of looking to you to understand where we need to be play to play and identification of what's going on, pass run, all that kind of stuff up front in the front seven. So looking forward to it.
Does it help that he's on a team that prides itself on playing top tier defense, that he can be a sponge and learn from guys that can help him add some tools to his game?
100%. That's the thing I love the most about the situation for Schwartz and the situation for Britt, is that the guys that are in front of you are pros and they do it at an elite level. Get in there and soak up that knowledge, understand what you need to do, how you need to do in this system. It's not that they're not changing schemes at either of those teams, really. So like the guys who are there understand the scheme. They can tell you where you need to fit in with that type of stuff. And they seem to be the type of teams around them that are committed to mentorship, right? They want to make sure the guy behind them is going to do a good job. That doesn't happen in all places. Some places they're just like, hey, look, go get it how you live, Rook. But those guys seem like, hey, this is our defense, and everybody who steps on this field needs to be committed to it. This is our offense, or this is our wide receiver group specifically in Cleveland. They're going to take him in there and make sure he knows what he's got going on. I'm looking forward to seeing how that can pay dividends down the line for him.
Indeed. Well, again, congratulations to KJ Britt. I didn't say to Sherwood, but congrats to him as well for landing in a what, according to Ike, appears to be a very ideal situation for them to grow and show what they can do at the next level. War Eagle to those gentlemen, continue to make us proud. And also, guys, we're going to talk about Seth Williams. I know we got some thoughts on that, and we would love to share them with you. But before we share anything, we need to share this video, man. Listen, go on Facebook, go on Twitter, share at us at The War Rapport. Use the hashtags TWR Tailgate and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. That helps us out a ton. And let people know we out here, man, giving you great content in the off season. That's what we do at The War Rapport. Mike G, what we got coming, man?
Oh, man. Speaking of Get Your Weight Up, you can do that by watching Chop It Up with a Pro. You can get your weight up exactly 10 pounds in football knowledge by watching one session, right? So Ike and Chris will be breaking down film for this particular one. This is kind of a bonus for our insiders. We're going to be chopping up QB film from A-Day. So we've been doing last year's film. This is a great opportunity for us to take a deep dive on a preview of what we may be seeing this year under this coaching staff. So, they didn't show a ton during A-Day, but there are definitely some interesting things to talk about there. I'm interested to get Chris Todd's take on it. Him and I talk often about football things. And so if you haven't seen one of these, become an insider for $5.99 and you can get access to this. This will be exclusive to our insiders. So hit that join button. In addition to that, hit our GoFundMe. We appreciate the super chats. This is another great way to support our content. We get a bigger piece of the pie when you guys hit that GoFundMe. So you can find this link in the About section of our YouTube channel, as well as the link to our merch store. So that stuff is all available to you guys. There's a ton going on here we've got coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm excited for the content that we're bringing you guys.
Awesome. Let's continue on, man, with the discussion of the draft. And for those of you who may have come on later and didn't see it, here's the graphic again that shows the results of the past weekend's draft. Of course, Schwartz goes 3rd round, 91st pick. Sherwood in the 5th round, 146th pick. We corrected that for you guys who may have saw it earlier. KJ Britt, 5th round, 176th pick. We see Eli Stove and Jordan Peters get signed to teams as a free agent. And there's Seth Williams, round 6, 219th pick. Now, I will be honest with you guys. I was a bit surprised at this slide here. I know some of you may not be surprised, but I was a bit surprised, mainly because I wanted to see this guy actually go higher and prove himself, as everyone else probably did. But here we are, man. Let's talk about Seth. He's expected. Not sure the make of this because I'm not sure what Denver is trying to do. I know there was talks about them trying to aim for a certain quarterback that B thinks very highly of. I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but the Broncos is pretty stacked at receiver already, if I'm not mistaken, guys. Am I right in saying that?
They are.
What do we make of this here? I'm gonna start with Ike. What do we make of Seth going in the 6th round?
Yeah, so this goes back to the conversation we had Wednesday about whether or not guys were in the optimal position to get the most bang for their buck immediately in the NFL, meaning how much money they could make starting day one. Seth Williams is in a position right now where it's not even guaranteed that he's going to make this team because of where his draft was. Like, it's going to be completely up to him and how hard he works. But he's not in the best of positions right now as far as whether or not he is going to make this football team. We disagree as to whether or not he could have benefited from an additional year in college and whether or not that would have helped his draft stock. I still feel as if it could have. But, hey, at the end of the day, the decision has been made. He has been drafted. Now he's got to go out there and prove it on the field. I just don't. So there's, and I don't know how much we want to get into this off the top, but there's definitely been a vigorous debate as to whether or not the draft stock by Seth Williams was hurt by the system that he was in or by his own antics on and off the field. I think that there's enough blame to go around for both of those things. I, however, place the lion's share of that blame on the system that he was in and his utilization in college, because his talent level is undeniable.
Yeah.
It's you can't deny his ability to go up and get the ball, his speed at his size, and his physicality after the catch. Undeniable traits about Seth Williams. I think had he been placed in a better position by the offensive scheme prior to him going to the draft, he would have had better looks going in. Now, the attitude issues, we can debate about whether or not that was hurtful. It obviously was, but I think that still points back to the people who could have put that in check prior to him going into the draft. So, I listen, however people feel about it, they can feel what they want to. My thing is, we have to do better. And I say we as if I'm on the Auburn staff. I am absolutely not. But as a system in Auburn, have to do better. And hopefully Coach Harsin instills this a little bit more on the offensive side of having disciplined guys who are going to be maximized at their talent level to get the best out of them possible at Auburn and then allow them the best success forward in the future. That's all I got on that for right now. We'll see what everybody else has to say.
Talk to me, B.
Well, speaking first about where he went and what that means for him, Denver, I mean, I don't know if they have a Pro Bowl wide receiver, but what they have is a lot of wide receivers who are
Jerry
good.
Jeudy will be.
He will be. I mean, as far as right now.
Yeah.
They don't have a solid quarterback, but if you get Aaron Rodgers, man, who is the greatest. Okay, Patrick Mahomes is real. So he is top 2 quarterbacks, skill and talent wise, ever in history. I'm not talking about rings. Rings would be the greatness of career. That is not what I'm discussing. I am talking about physical ability, mental ability, physical talent. Aaron Rodgers has single-handedly. I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to get in Aaron Rodgers. We know he's great. Now, what that means for the Denver wide receiver core is Seth is a project at 6th round. 6th round, they're saying, yeah, you've got some ability, you've got some potential, but you've got a lot of guys in front of you who you don't feel a skill set that is not already present in front of you. So what you're going to have to do is go practice hard, learn, show well in practice, and not hope that somebody in front of you gets hurt, because you never want that in the NFL. But that's going to be his chance. His chance is going to be injury. His chance is going to be to outwork everybody else around him and behind him. And when those guys in front of you are taking time off, I mean, everybody's going to get at least one game, because it's going to be a 17-game season and players can't play but 16. So listen, these backup guys you're going to get reps without a doubt. Injuries happen frequently in the NFL. You're going to get some chances. And when he gets those chances, he's going to have to show really well. If there's anything to be gained from his slide this far, it's that He knows he has a lot to prove. He is not in a position where he is the favorite son, where, hey, I am the best guy you got here. Give me what I want, or I'm going to show a little attitude, and I'll get to that in a minute. He knows what he has to do to stay there, to stay in the league, to be productive. He knows he has and the attitude that we talked about a lot of Tuberville wide receivers had. You're not going to get the ball, man. You're going to block. But when it's time for you to get the ball, you better do the most with it. And he's going to be doing that in a place where everybody around him is productive. And I just hope he rises to that occasion. But now, the idea that I don't think there's any question that the offensive system here and the flailing offensive production here over the last few years absolutely hurt every single skill position player that went in this draft. I hope that's not up for debate at this point. We've heard enough from the players in the league who played there, from quarterback coaches who coach professional quarterbacks, from the tape that we watched with King about the offensive linemen. People were set back. They had skills and skill sets. Gus's system only asked you to do a little bit, and that's all you were asked to do. So that's all you did. You either did it well or you didn't. When you get to the pros, guys are like, yeah, I need like 8 more things from you, but I've only seen 3. So yeah, you got some skills, you measure well, but you're going to take this back seat until you can show us what you can do. Slayton did a great job of that. Slayton didn't start. They took Slayton off the bench mid-year because he showed well enough. He had skills that he was working on. He got better every year here. He didn't get to put a lot of it on display outside of one season, but he did what he had to do. He showed well in practice, behind the scenes, and now he is a consistent performer, doing things, body control and extension and hands that I didn't see from Slayton at Auburn. He got better. If you have the skills, you can do it. The thing about Gus and Gus's system, and when people try to put it on Seth's attitude, I didn't like that. The reason I don't like that is this. It's 2 things. Number one, we've seen Gus Malzahn get rid of guys who were problems on the team. Javon Robinson, unsubstantiated accusations that were later retracted. He did not hesitate to get him off of the team. Duke Williams had an attitude problem. Damian Craig kind of kept him in check while he was on the team, or did his best to. It bubbled over. You're gone. You're out of here. Another one, which this is completely me speculating, so you don't take this with a grain of salt. Nick Cole was one of the defensive linemen in that stellar defensive year 2019. What happened to Nick Cole? You saw less and less and less of him, and eventually he just didn't get the field anymore. It was supposedly behind the scenes disciplinary stuff. Gus Malzahn didn't seem to have a problem sitting people who were a detriment to the team. So if a guy has an attitude problem, if he is not doing what you want in practice, if he is becoming a distraction, as the head coach, it is completely within your power to say, no, I'm not putting up with it. You sit down. If a guy is getting overthrown or underthrown, if you want to blame it on the quarterback and say, well, listen, this is why he was acting up. Yeah, the head coach picks the quarterback. The head coach picks the starter. He recruits the starter. He decides that that's the guy who gives you the best chance to win. So everything that Seth did or showed was a result of the head coach who recruited him, who recruited the guy throwing him the ball, and Gus made the decision to keep both of those guys on the field, whether they show well or not. It is up to the head coach. We talk all the time about them being leaders of men. Well, lead. If you're the leader of these men, lead them. If he just needed some tough love and just say, listen, man, I know how hungry you are for receptions because you're thinking about the next level, sit down. What's better than that? What is going to make that alarm go off for him more quickly than, okay, listen, I can't lose games. I can't lose receptions. I can't lose time on film because that's going to hurt me. I get it. I'm going to shape up, or he's going to go. Those are his options. Those are the options that you get as a coach to make that decision really easy for Seth Williams. He's made it before for other guys. So why are we blaming Seth Williams here when Gus Malzahn was the guy in control of reining him in or showing him the door? So I don't like putting that on the player. Now, does that mean I don't think he had an attitude problem? Sure. We talked about it all the time. We talked about how when he flexed up on that Kentucky wide receiver after that touchdown, the DB. Listen, man, that's uncalled for. You caught the touchdown. We know you was talking a little bit. You did it, man. Give the ball to the ref and go on. We saw him take plays off. We saw him know that the ball wasn't coming to him and ease up on his blocking assignments. We saw that. We know those are things that he did wrong. Who keeps you on the field? Give me a championship program in the last 10 years that you think if they did that consistently, if a player on the field showed a lack of effort consistently or attitude consistently, he wouldn't be sat or pulled. Then why here? Why did our coach put up with that? That is not an excuse. That Seth Williams' attitude, if he came with that, help this man. He obviously needed it. If you think that his attitude was the reason he slid from being what I think is a second round talent to the 6th round, then we failed him X's and O's, and we failed him otherwise as well. And that would be that's what I got on Seth Williams.
Listen, it's Sunday. Be preached. There's no super chat offerings. I want to know, did we not just have church? What just happened here?
I don't know why the offering basket hasn't been passed around already.
Well, I'm passing it. Like B needs an offering. That was some well said, B. Mike G, top that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I just want to start with saying, listen, that whole soliloquy, I agree with everything. Check all the way down. I just want to talk about a different aspect of the decision-making process as it highlights, because I've seen and read a lot over the last few days about should he have gone, should he have stayed, did he cost himself money, who costed him money, right? The great thing about our platform is that before we form opinions, we get to talk to former players who have actually gone through the process. So I want to be painfully clear about what I'm about to say. Not me, not anybody on this show, not anybody in our comments can say definitively whether he made the right or the wrong decision to go, because it's just too much that we don't know. So let's talk about the process for a second, right? Player gets a draft evaluation from the NFL. Again, I mentioned earlier that the guidance before from the NFL was if you get anything 4th round or lower, go back to school. So he got, I'm not sure what his actual draft evaluation was, but a lot of people were predicting him to go 3rd to 6th, right? Like, I mean, it was a very wide range. I think maybe one publication I read had him maybe sneaking into the 2nd round. So I cannot underscore enough how difficult a decision this is for these guys when you're making the decision about your future. And you've got a lot of people in your ear, a lot of money people who want you to go because they benefit off your decision to go pro, right? A lot of coaches in college who want you to stay because they benefit off your decision to stay, right? So what happens next? After you get that draft evaluation, there's a meeting with the player and the coach. And presumably, this current staff gave their recruiting pitch to him to stay. And given all the information he had, he still made the decision to go. Now, take what you want from that, but that says something to me. Because he wasn't the only one to do it. All 3 receivers did it. They all made the same decision. And I think that if all of them, it was probably in Stowe's best interest to come back for another year. And he even made the decision to go.
I disagree, but you can go ahead.
I mean, he was on nobody's draft board. Right. So I don't know that I think that in another year, you could improve your stock from completely undrafted free agent to maybe low rounds. And he still made the decision to go. So that says a lot about the system that they played in. Right. And it maybe says something about what these guys saw about what's coming in. Right. All I know is they have way more information than we do. And they still made the decision to go. Now, beyond that, right. I was talking to King about this. He was like, Mike, you can't really know whether you made a good decision until like 3-4 years from now for a lot of these guys. And he talked about his own draft process. Right. Looking back on it. Right. A lot of people were telling him to go his junior year. There were a lot of people in his ear saying, but if you play another year, first round. And then he went 7th because of a lot of factors that were outside of his control. So there's no way to say definitively this guy cost himself money by leaving this year. You don't know that. You can't know that. So these are very difficult, tough decisions for these guys. And so as he was sitting on the board and I was watching the draft, my heart was going out to him because he made what was a life-changing decision to go. And as the 4th round came and the 5th round came and you're still sitting on the board, man, I can't imagine the amount of self-doubt that you must have thinking, did I make the right decision? Because I had a lot of people in my ear.
Right.
You know, and so I just want to get that straight first, right? Like, you know, again, if you're sitting here and you're thinking that, oh, he cost himself, you know, I'm with B. I'm like, listen, I lean more on the leaders that were supposed to guide him cost
100%.
Yeah.
Than he himself. Yeah. And in given all that he had to go through with those leaders that were supposed to have his best interest in heart, he had to take all that into account and then make the best decision for him at the end of the day. Once he's made it, I just hope it works out.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to sit here and debate about whether he made the right decision or not after he makes it. Right. But moving forward, how does our system put guys like Seth Williams, who clearly have talent? Now, you know, if you read his draft evaluations, he's got some things that he needs to work on. His draft, it wasn't a surprise to me based on what I believed about what I read that he needed to work on. And the receivers that were currently in this draft that didn't need to work on a lot of things that he needed to work on. You know, it was loaded.
Yeah.
But given the system, I don't know how anybody, honestly, whether you like Auburn, and a lot of people will take what I'm saying personally, I'm over it. Like, so listen, man, I'm going to start another hashtag that just says disagree with G, because that's what happens most of the time anyway on the board, right? Like, it is not, I just think that, again, you cannot be so singularly focused on the decision to say, because as fans, we all want him to come back another year. And there's a small subset of players, right, who it is actually a no-brainer for them to go and not come back, that we can say that definitively, right? And they say if you get a top 10 first round evaluation, you go. And you may not get drafted in the top 10, but those players very rarely fall to the second round. If you're a consistent top 10 pick, maybe you get drafted 13 or 14, depending on some weird crap that happens about where teams pick and picks being traded. But for the most part, you're a first rounder, so you go. Right. Everybody after that has a really hard decision to make. I talked about it on our last deal. The money between last pick in the first round and first pick in the second round is millions of dollars. So something else that a lot of fans don't understand happens is that a lot of these guys who get first round evaluations their junior year take out insurance policies against injury.
Yeah.
King did it, right? I know a lot of other players who did it that said, if I come back from my senior year and I get hurt, here's my chance at least at some money. There are companies out there, insurance companies out there who do that. And it's very common for guys making that decision. One of the high profile situations that I think about is I think about Ronnie Brown and Cadillac. Everybody and their mama was telling them to leave their junior year. We thought at least one of them would be gone. I remember the feeling around the athletic department when those guys were making the decision about whether to stay or go. They both came back. And everybody who said that they should have left their junior year was wrong, because they both got drafted 2 and 5. Now, listen, that's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, but that's why I'm preaching. There's no way for us to definitively know whether these players actually made the right decision or not.
Right.
You know, maybe it works out, and maybe if they stayed another year, it works out even better. We're never going to know that.
Derek Brown is another example of that.
Yeah. But I'm just telling you, you will never see me sit here and fault a guy for betting on himself, because he is in control of how hard he works.
Right.
And if he thinks I can get to the next level and you just give me a chance, I mean, listen. I mean, even in what we're doing on the War Rapport, what do we say every day? We talk about our business. We say, listen, I'll be damned if I get outworked.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
The bottom line is nobody's going to outwork me on the day to day. So you can have your little channel, but if you coming for mine, right? Get ready to sit at your computer 18 hours a day. Because Mike G has never failed at anything I've done my entire life. Because I refuse to be outworked. And these players take that same attitude. Right. So, listen, and that was my message to him. I posted something in All About Auburn. Like, listen, man, the attitude stuff, I'm with B, man. I think a lot of that stuff was overblown given his particular situation. Right. And I think the attitude would potentially a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, the last part of this that I want to talk about is the position, right? Of all the positions on a football field, I talked to 3 players about this yesterday. Wide receiver is one of the hardest positions you have to make that decision at because of how much is out of your control. Right. If you're a lineman, you go out and do what? You just block the guy in front of you. Even if you're playing on a crappy offensive line, you can still get a great grade. You can still grade out. Well, defensive lineman, you can get after the quarterback. Defensive back, you can still lock down your guy on a crappy defense. Mm-hmm. Quarterback, you touch the ball every single play. Running back, there's a lot less to go wrong between a quarterback handing the ball off. Now, you do need a line that can block, but for the most part, there's still a measure of control that they have that wide receivers don't.
Yeah.
You can run perfect routes. How well can you really evaluate a wide receiver's route running if he never gets the ball? Or they don't throw? It's hard. It's a lot harder for him because you know what? Not only does he need a system, he needs the guy throwing him the ball to be on point to some extent. So you see that in the quarterback's evaluations, they're quick to know when a quarterback benefits from a receiver that adjusts all the time. And on the flip side, you see them credit the wide receiver, right, for bailing quarterbacks out constantly. But the O-line affects the wide receiver. The defense affects the wide receiver. I mean, he had the most difficult decision of all the players in this draft about whether to stay or whether to go. Yeah. Because if he comes back and he met with Harsin, none of us did. Because that's the recruiting pitch that a coaching staff has to make every single year, getting players to stay.
Yeah.
And convincing them that it's in their best interest.
Right. And
the only time that you're not making a hard recruiting pitch is if that guy is a consensus top 10 pick.
Yeah.
What did Bruce Pearl tell
Sharif Cooper?
No, the guy before last year. Why is
brain fart? Comments.
Talking about Isaac Okoro?
Okoro, right?
Yeah.
We're not even sitting here having a conversation about whether you're coming back. You're going, bro.
Right.
That happens to some extent in football as well, too. But it's such a small subset of players that have that sort of conversation where the coach, even though he would love to have Okoro back.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There's no way for you with any integrity to convince Okoro that it's in his best interest to come back to Auburn another year.
Facts.
Right? The conversation is a lot tougher for 99% of the players. So for Seth, he made the best decision that he thought he could make. For him, for his family, some of these guys have financial reasons that they decide to make the jump.
Absolutely.
It's not just them they're thinking about. So you can't sit here and wax poetic about whether he made the right decision to stay or go. It's a lot of decisions, man. A lot of factors that go into this decision.
Right. So
I'll just close by saying, right, again, he had the toughest decision to make. He made it. And what I'm sure we're going to get into here in a second is in making that decision, all the things that he had to overcome to even be in a position to get taken in the 6th round, despite system, despite leadership that may have failed him. I know that's a hard thing to talk about. B, I won't go all the way into it because I thought B articulated it beautifully. Right? Leaders failed him to some extent. And he didn't have the type of talent that transcends attitude and all that stuff, right? Like, where you're just like, oh, he's just so talented. It doesn't even matter if he, spit on his coach. We're taking him first round, right? He didn't have that kind of talent. So you had to factor that in for him. And watching the blow-ups on the sideline between him and the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, right? Stuff that you don't normally see on functional championship teams.
Right.
You just don't. I don't know that you can argue that. Have you ever seen Trevor Lawrence yelling at his wide receivers in that kind of way?
Right.
No.
On any Bama team? Right. I mean, I just don't, you don't see that stuff. So now Harson's challenge is put these guys, and I went on a long thing about, so I won't do it again, but put these guys in a better, it's time for us to start holding up our end of the bargain for guys like Seth Williams. In a better system, we would not be sitting here arguing about why he went in the 6th round and not the 2nd or 3rd. I just know anybody could argue otherwise.
Since we're talking about guys and where they landed, where they should have landed, I want to shout out Chase H, who's in the comment section. You've been commenting regularly, friend of the show. We actually did a video. Ike and Mike did a video with him last week that was released on Chase H's channel. Please be sure to check him out if you haven't already, on what is the definition of a true Auburn fan. It's about a 45-minute video or so. Good listen, good watch. Those guys did a great job. Please be sure to check that out. Chase H posted something over the weekend, and we're giving him a lot of love and credit for this. This is not our information.
Yeah,
we just hijacked it.
Yeah, because I definitely wouldn't have spent this time.
I appreciate that. This is all for you, buddy. We're just making it pretty like this. So, by the numbers, this is the number of players drafted in the 1st round from teams with recruiting classes averaging in the top 10 in the past 10 years. All right. So, of course, we know who number 1 is in Bama, but right behind them, number 2 is Ohio State with 18. LSU's right behind them at 15. Clemson, number 4 with 14. Florida has 12. Behind them is Georgia with 11. Notre Dame, number 7 with 9. FSU has 9. And Auburn is the only team. Now, we don't know who the other team is or if there's another one, but Auburn is the only team that has less than 9 who's had average a top 10 recruiting class in the past 10 years. So we make a lot, we can make a lot of arguments about the player. And I saw a lot of comments this weekend about Seth dropping passes. This player did this, this player did that. But here are the numbers.
Right. Let's
look at the numbers here, guys. This is it right here. Look at where our rivals are. Look at where Georgia is. Look at where Bama is. Look at where LSU is. Look at Florida. Look at these schools. Also ask yourself which teams in the past 10 years have been to the national championship game. Auburn's done it twice, but look where Auburn is by the numbers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't, man, listen.
That's it. That's
yeah. Can I make two comments on this? 2 comments on this. And
go ahead.
I'm going to TB Will up in just a second on this to go on a little rant that I know he's been dying to get out of his system, and we will probably talk about later. But number 1, this echoes everything that we've been talking about development of talent. There is no way you can tell me that a team who is averaging top 10 recruiting classes should not be able to, let's forget about national championships, right? Because there's a ton of things that go into whether or not you can be a national championship team every year, whether you can win championships. Throw all of that out the window. Okay, so great. We didn't compete for national championships. How are the players that talented not getting drafted highly. That comes all the way back to development of talent, all the way back to how you evaluate talent and how you develop it once it gets to your team. You're not seeing that happen on a consistent basis at Auburn, and it's a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots in that scenario. But it's not that big a gap in the talent that you're bringing in. That's a problem, right? We underscore that all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to queue up for B. Will, and I'm gonna let you get your rocks off on this, is how low Georgia ranks on this list relative to how high they traditionally are in their talent that they're bringing in. Georgia, if you ask me, has squandered even more talent than Auburn has over the last 10 years, considering I don't know that Georgia's been outside of the top 5 for a majority of those years. And they are, where were they on this list? 6?
Yep.
So this ain't the Bash Georgia channel, but again, B. Will, B. Will and I talked about this a little bit off camera, so I know he got some thoughts on it. That's why I just want to cue him up. Do your thing, brother.
There are 2 coaches in the SEC who are living off of hype, memory, and reputation, and I don't understand it.
Used to be 3,
Jimmy,
but we're not there no more.
There are that's true. Jimothy Fisher.
See what you did there.
And Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart sat under the umbrella that Nick Saban was holding and caught all of the juice that dripped off the umbrella. And then tiptoed over to Georgia and sat and based on reputation. I cannot tell you that Kirby Smart is not a very good defensive coordinator. I will never know how good a defensive coordinator because he's been stacked with unreal talent at Alabama and at Georgia. He has never been without extremely incredible talent as a defensive mind. So I don't know how good he is. Okay. I know that Kevin Steele, to all his faults, we can go back, he made a unbelievable defense out of 2 outstanding players and 1 really good one. And Kirby Smart's usually got 8 of those on any given year. So to me, I've said this about head coaches. The measure of a head coach is what you do with what you've got. All right. If you're getting the best of everything all the time, then you should be producing an extremely outstanding result. All right. Clemson has kind of gotten there. And it's also a reason Clemson has slid. They kind of took a step back recruiting on the defensive side. And it showed the last couple of years. They couldn't hang when they had that outstanding year where they blew out Bama National Championship. That was like a defensive line recruiting class where they got like 4 studs and it bore fruit. So Kirby Smart at Georgia. See, so they beat us to win the SEC in 2017. Bravo. You know what I'm saying? You good job, Kirby. And you get embarrassed defensively, no doubt, in the national championship game to lose that game. Since then, he has lost games where he's been by far the more talented team. That is to Florida last year, because Florida was definitely a 3-man squad on the offensive side. Terrible offensive line. I don't know how you get Roquan Smith and the offensive linemen that are going to the draft top 2 rounds every year. And I mean, you had your pick of quarterbacks. I don't know what happened. You want to let Justin Fields slide out? Cool. You know, that's just another NFL quarterback that you thought it was okay to run that archaic offense and let him slide out the door, and instead let who was it playing in the last couple of years?
Fromm.
It was Fromm, who is maybe he's still on the roster at Philly. I don't know. And who was it last year? It was everybody last year because
they had like 3. It was a carousel last year for them. They ended with JT Daniels, wanted to start with him. He was hurt, but then they had a bunch of Bennett. Spencer was, I don't know what his first name is, Bennett. And then the other dude who was awful. Yeah.
Listen, man, when Kirby first got there was a lot of energy and a lot of really good recruiting. He was the only person who could steal some of Nick Saban's thunder because he could say, listen, I know it. I've seen it. I have been part of it. I can do just as well for you as they can do there. And you can tell the truth. The guys they're getting drafted. They're not getting drafted as highly as Knicks players are. Why haven't you won anything yet, man? What are you doing? You are getting the best recruits in Georgia, Florida. You're stealing some in Alabama. Look, and you got George Pickens. What is he doing? 2 years underutilized because you let Justin Fields leave, and now he's got a hurt ACL. He's going to the league next year. He's not coming back for that.
Yeah, I have some perspective on that Justin Fields thing. I'm just going to interject a point before you finish. Like, listen, if you like the War Rapport, we have some segments coming up that are going to make people really love us even more and make some other people hate us to all hell. Right. But truth is truth. Right. And so, I just want to put that. I mean, you said something. I don't want to leak it because we filmed it. We filmed it. But I think that a lot of fans are going to be very interested in some of the stuff we have coming. But keep going. Georgia sucks.
Like it was embarrassing when Mark Richt was running roughshod all over us because you figured, man, we're better than this. I distinctly remember the year was 2006, and we had gotten embarrassed by an Arkansas squad with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones that nobody really saw coming that year. And then we lost that game. We took it on the chin. We regrouped. We still had a good season, and then we get embarrassed in an 11 a.m. game against Georgia, who just rolled. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? I thought we had plugged the holes here. Why are we getting embarrassed by Georgia? We go on the road with hurt Sean White. And honestly, Georgia was terrible on offense that year.
Yeah,
and Gus played the one guy who couldn't throw past 10 yards in the air, and we lose that game. That was the one you take. We finally get one blowout game. Oh, it's so beautiful. Everything was working. And then we give the glory right back. Well, 3 weeks later, technically. I am so tired of getting embarrassed by Georgia, of getting out-recruited by Georgia, of getting fairly beaten, or just having to have we had to have Cam Newton and the prayer and Jordyn here to beat Georgia in the last 11 years. Cam Newton is once in a lifetime. The prayer and Jordyn here might be once and even longer than that. Why does it take so much to beat Georgia? And then Kirby Smart be saying some slick stuff, man. Yeah, we first got hired. You know what he said? Auburn, we know how to beat Auburn. You don't know how to beat nobody, man. We burned you in 2013 and 2014. You just glad when you have a defense. I don't like Kirby Smart. Okay.
In closing.
He is not the all-star coach anybody has made him out to be. He has the resources to field a very good team every year, but he cannot get it done because he is not the guy. We'll ease off on Jimothy. He had a good year. His guy got drafted, which was still a surprise to me. It was a surprise that Kellen Mond got drafted.
You were surprised Kellen Mond got drafted?
Yes, because I still think he is the best case for him as a clipboard holder who plays a couple games every year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree, but I definitely thought he was going to get drafted.
Yeah,
I just don't think you have to
know that he'll ever see a field.
Yeah. A lot of NFL people disagree with you, obviously, because he got drafted.
So he had to show something in being able to be coached to the point where he played last year, and I think that's a positive for Kellen Mond.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be like set the NFL on fire QB, but he can be a journeyman backup.
Yeah.
When someone gets injured,
he can probably come in and hold it down for a few games until.
What's the guy's name? Fitzpatrick. He can be a Fitzpatrick type of guy. Just comes in and doesn't screw up. Maybe makes a couple amazing plays every now and then. I can see him doing that.
Or maybe he just gets in the system where they do actually know how to get the most out of him, and he develop. I mean, I didn't think that Dak Prescott would be as good as he is in the NFL, and he started lighting it on fire. So I was lukewarm.
Dak was better than mine.
I'm not arguing that. Right, I'm just saying. I just didn't think that he would be as good as he has been in the NFL. So I mean, talent is subjective. Are you done, B? Or you need more time?
I'm good. I was just gonna keep finding different ways to circle back to Curtis Smart. So you're good.
And another thing on Curtis.
I just want to look at this one more time, right? So when you're looking at this, this to me is the tale of the tape. Yeah. Right. Bama 32 guys. If I remember correctly, 6 guys. 11 guys overall just in this last draft. Yeah.
And this is just first rounders, right? Like we're not looking at all drafted players from the team, but just first rounders. 32 is insane.
They had backups get drafted before our starters.
Yeah.
So I just want to say again that I know this is going to be a disagree with G moment for a lot of fans, but I think it's hard to look at that graphic and then say that we've been holding up our end of the bargain, given the talent, the guys who have given us commitments to come play for Auburn. You look at the high profile transfers, right? Like, I mean, when you take it all into account, man, we didn't do the best job we could have done for a lot of these kids. So, if you're a defender of the last staff, or hell, if you're on the last staff, right? This is where I hope you learn something from this rather than thinking, who's to blame then? Right? Because a good leader steps up and says, we could have done better. And that's what I see. I see leaders that could have done better for the players that we got. When I look at that graphic, 4 guys, man, and an average 9 like class, that's crazy. That's a lot of talent that's come through here. So you're either misevaluating, misappropriating, misusing, like you're missing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
For there to only be 4 guys. And do we know whether those guys were on offense or defense? Who were those guys?
So we're talking, it's right.
We know Brown, definitely.
There we go.
Right. An offensive lineman,
quarterback, DB, and a defensive lineman.
There. Because Cam is actually 11 years ago. This 10 years back.
Cam doesn't follow.
So D Ford is the one that we were missing on that other one.
Okay, so technically 3 defensive guys and 1 offensive tackle.
Yep.
Right.
He played primarily under another coach.
So we've sent no offensive skill,
no skill players.
Yeah.
No offensive skill players in the first round of the draft in a decade.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of second rounders, but no first rounders.
No first rounders in a decade.
Yeah.
Right. Recruiting top 10 classes, but not producing top 10 talent or top 32 talent. Wow, man. Like, this is where Harsin has to do a little bit better. Now, I'll tell you, I mean, I will touch on it later, but there was an article being circulated around about the top 3 quarterbacks that went in this last class, and that Harsin was highly recruiting a lot of them at some point.
Yeah, we can talk about it now.
Yeah, so his eye for quarterbacks, but he was at Boise, right? So I hope that his eye for quarterbacks is still the same, because if you had asked me who Trey Lance was before this draft, I could not have told you.
Right.
Same with the Zach Wilson kid. There's always I remember when Joe Flacco got drafted, I was like, who? He went to New Hampshire or something like that, right? There are always these guys, right? Daniel Jones, these guys that come from these schools, and you're just thinking, man, how do you truly evaluate a guy like Trey Lance? I went back and looked at his numbers and just thought, he must be a physical specimen. Like, he must have had a really good pro day because, in the league that he played in against the competition that he played against, how do you he has to have transcendent talent if they're measuring him as a top 5 pick in that league at that school.
Yeah. So,
if they can do it, right? You're not telling me not one guy at quarterback. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, what round did he go in? 4th?
Yeah, I think he was a 4th or
4th
fifth
round, 4th or 5th rounder, right? Beside Cam, he's the only other quarterback we've had taken, right, in the draft since Cam.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, Nick Marshall got drafted, I think, at another position, so I don't count.
He was Undrafted Free Agent.
Yeah, so he wasn't even drafted though. He went to the league and I don't even know if he's still on the roster, but it was at cornerback.
Canadian football.
He ended up playing Canadian football back at quarterback again.
Yeah, he still is. But wow. Now, to B's point about Georgia and them misevaluating quarterbacks, I think that's the one thing standing between them and them actually seriously challenging Bama every year.
Yeah.
It's just finding a good quarterback because of how many other things that position affects on the field. It's hard to have a fluid offense when you don't have at least an average to good quarterback. Not in today's football, right? Because you just can't run the ball every play, right? I mean, even the better teams or the worst teams in our league will load the box and they have enough talent to stop you if you're going to be a one-trick pony. You're going to lose some games that you are not supposed to lose if you can't be at least somewhat two-dimensional.
Right.
So, like, I for Auburn, I think again we are Georgia at the quarterback position, but with a lot less development around the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Like, we don't have the wide receivers that they've had over the years. We've had some really good defenses, but at the offensive skill positions, we have just not consistently evaluated and grown talent at other skill positions enough to cover up for what we've lacked at quarterback development.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with the system, right? Like the system didn't require much out of those guys, and the people who were teaching that system at the wide receiver position weren't expecting more out of them.
Well, they worked for a guy, right?
What did you expect? What were the standards that were set for not only X's and O's and skill set, but behavior? If all of that is a part of how you perform on the field, then they're only going to do what you ask them to do and what you expect of them. So if you're not expecting crisp route running, if you're not asking them to run curl routes, if you're not asking them to do any comebacks, if the back shoulder throw, which has been so prominent over the last 5 years in the pros, I felt like we saw when Deshaun Watson, that last year he played when he beat Bama, he had a chemistry with his wide receivers that I don't think I've seen in college since. Like, I see Alabama's wide receivers running away from everybody. That's not chemistry. That's just X's and O's I'm better by. But I saw a fluidity with Watson, and it turns out Watson is an excellent quarterback. It's you either have it or you don't. I remember he was coming out and Dabo said, don't pass on this guy. This is the Michael Jordan. And that's hard to say in football because, I mean, come on, Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan. But he was right. Deshaun Watson is that special a talent, arm-wise, running-wise, identifying and reading. And you don't get that a lot. Where is the route running that I see in the NFL? Where is that mirrored here? Where was that ever mirrored? Are we practicing that? Are we doing things that are not going to be expected if you just watch a season of Gus Malzahn tape? We weren't. That's why it was so easy. The longer he was here, the easier it was to defend us. The worse the offenses got, the less talent we could bring in because we started tanking the talent that we got. How are you going to convince a 5-star offensive lineman that everybody wants to come here? Well, what do the rest of your guys do? Oh, they're all either on somebody's bench or out of the league, huh? No thanks. What do the rest of the wide receivers do? I don't blame Justin Ross for not coming here. I don't blame George Pickens for not coming here. Now, to be fair, George Pickens hasn't had too much more of a career than he would have had here than at Georgia. So, again,
but that was the recruiting pitch against Auburn,
right? And it was accurate.
Right. Yeah. It was not hard to recruit against us.
That was the pitch.
Yeah. Unless you were a running back, right? It was not hard to recruit against us on offense, at skill positions. So, some of the high profile guys that we've been in the running for that essentially we had no shot at, the names that popped to mind, like Sammy Watkins, Clemson ended up with him, Russell Wilson.
He made a great decision.
It came down to us and Wisconsin, and he just looked at the offensive line and said, "I'm going to Wisconsin. I got 1 year to play. I can't make a bad decision."
Right.
He took the more stable deal. Now that wasn't necessarily on Gus, but I mean he was a part of this before Russell Wilson made that decision, right? Like so, I kind of throw that in there. Guys in state. Now I went on a long rant about winning back to state on our last broadcast. It's time to win back to state. Guys like Julio Jones, in-state guys, I think he was out of Mobile, making the decision easily to go to Bama. We have to make this a harder decision for a lot of these guys. It has not been a hard decision if you're a top 5 player in the state of Alabama. there's enough talent in state to win national championships if you are not going to heavily recruit outside of this region. Right? Like you need to win the state. We have to win back the state. And the way you win back the state, right, is that you take this number and you get your weight up seriously.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? This is an easy. I mean, listen, I struggle to put this on screen because I don't want Alabama to take our graphic on their recruiting trips and be like, "What's Auburn is?" Right. I mean, if you're Saban, it's gotten really easy to recruit. Just forget the championships. Just talk about the development. Just the development piece.
Yeah.
And you can separate the two. It's not all about wins and losses. I don't think, we've talked about, what's a successful year for Harsin in year one. A lot of Gus apologists will say if he wins anything less than 8 games, we should have kept Gus. Hogwash. He can win 7 games next year and clearly show that he's moving us the right direction.
Right.
We just have to see more competitiveness on the field. You can lose some close ones, but don't lose it, to ineptitude.
Right.
Don't get severely outcoached.
Unprepared.
Right. If we don't look unprepared, like a 7-6 season next year can still be a successful season for Harsin. Right. And I'm telling you, it can be a successful season for Bo as well, too.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to go, as long as he's not the reason that we're losing it. And he looks competent in end of the game situations where he did not at times last year. That's Harsin's challenge. That's how you get that draft number up. Right? Listen, man, if he could, what better recruiting pitch could you have as a coach if you coached Bo Nix into a top second round draft pick?
Right.
Yeah. For real.
Right.
Wow. Think about the recruiting pitch that Borges had after Campbell. He was on nobody's radar.
Yeah.
And going into his senior season, coached him into a first round draft pick.
Yeah.
I think 25th overall. Wow. Right? Like a good system can do that for a player. We just need that. We have to be. Listen, man. As fans, we have to be embarrassed by that number, given the talent that we've gotten.
Agreed.
We have
and
to
stop making excuses for it.
Yeah.
Don't make excuses for it. Let's stop. Again, yes, Seth could have caught more. He could have caught more balls. He could have made more receptions. But who's responsible for that?
Right.
Who sits him down in film review and says this is why you end up being a 6th pick if you don't work on this, and this?
Yeah.
Who's holding him accountable? That's on the coaching staff. And I would love to stop talking about Gus. I know some of people get upset when we bring up the previous coaching staff, but let's
be clear. This is probably the last time that we talk this will be it.
If we keep experiencing things that were caused by the previous coaching staff, I would love to move on.
Yeah.
I would love to move on.
The draft kind of was like the end marker for this discussion.
Yeah.
Right. Because our new coach is responsible for everything else.
Everything going forward is on Coach Harsin. Whether it's his talent or not, it's his job to get him prepped and ready to go. And it's going to be his responsibility for making sure the game plan is correct going into the next season, right? Like you said, we don't want to sit here and talk about Gus. It's a reality. It falls in his lap, though. This is all
they got
him.
Drafted because of what happened prior to Harsin.
Correct.
All of this happened prior to Harsin. What you want us to do?
Yeah, it's the off season, so it's still noteworthy, right, to talk about. What I hope too, even for the coaches, is that no lessons. I hope that no lessons weren't taken from this experience. I hope that they learn as well too. We talk a lot about player development. I don't know if I worded that right, but
I'm looking at the comments.
I hope that the coaches took lessons from their inability to be able for that number to be higher. And say, hey, man, where can we improve as coaches? I say this a lot. A lot of times we look at coaches and we assume that they're at the precipice of their ability as coaches. And the truth is that they have room to grow and develop as well, too. Guys like Cody Burns, You know, okay. I mean, I hope that he learned some lessons from his experience coaching under Gus, good and bad, that he will use to make himself a better coach, because other guys' careers and livelihoods depend on it.
Yeah.
If you're a wide receiver and you're going to Tennessee, Cody owes you something, man.
Yeah.
Right? The coaches owe you something. In exchange for my commitment, you owe me maximum opportunity to develop. That's the fair trade. Here's my commitment. I'll come bust ass at your school, in practice, in the classroom, off the field, on the field, right? And you give me a chance to showcase my talents and make it to the next level if I do my part.
Yeah.
Right? I don't feel like our administration, our fans, the majority of people last year felt that was happening. Thus, we paid $21 million to get rid of the guy that we had. Because if it was happening, it would be less about wins and losses. Right? The 6-5 season looks really bad in lieu of the non-development.
Right.
Right.
Because nobody's calling for Bruce Pearl's head on a spike right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in the wins and losses column, we took some steps back. But it's clear to see that he's still developing talent. He now has the problem of having to deal with one and dones. You know, that's what's, I think, if you look at schools like Clemson and Alabama and LSU, some of the schools that have been at the top, right? One of the more impressive feats that they have every year is having to deal with the attrition of losing guys early and then still staying on top.
Mm-hmm.
That's difficult to do. When you know, I mean, Alabama lost 11 draft picks. Now, some of those guys couldn't have come back. I don't have the numbers on how many of them were underclassmen. But still, man, they lose guys early to the NFL draft every year, and they reload and keep moving.
Right.
Clemson does it. Right.
That's
You know, right. Yeah, it is. There was a really silly argument happening in the All About Auburn board. I won't say the guy's name, but about instituting a draft for college football. And I mean, he was noting that only a few schools really have a shot at a national title every year. You know, and I was making the point that I said that's about it's not that there aren't enough good players to go around. There aren't enough good coaches to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really believe that's not about players, because everybody can't go play for Bama and Clemson. That's about coaching and development.
Right.
Right. So you can't look at if you try to even the playing field, what would happen is, by spreading talent, the better coaches would still rise to the top. Saban would still be Saban if you took half his players, because he would still know how to develop better than you. And you're more likely as a bad coach to bust out a 5-star than he is. So he still wins. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, this is about coaching and this is about leadership.
Right.
So they've got to get this right, man. Like I can't stress enough, you know, to put a pin in this. Harsin is at least saying the right things. He's saying the things that indicate to me that he gets it.
Right.
You know, and that's at least encouraging. And I think, you know, Gus's 6-4-5 comment at the end of last season indicated to a lot of people that he did not get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. He had not done enough to get a pass on a comment like that last year.
Right.
Right.
Yo, so the decision was probably made before he made that comment, but still, man, it underscored to a lot of people why it was time to move on. You know, now we wish him well. And I want to be clear that no one is making a negative assumption about Gus Malzahn's character or any of the coaches' character for that matter.
Right.
As people. Right. And it's easy to take this personally if you know one of them or if you know one of these players, and when we're making these comments, you know, but you can critique play without critiquing the player as a person.
Right.
It's the same with coaches. We can critique his coaching without saying, you know, he's a terrible person, because that's what a lot of people hear, whether they want to admit it or not. Right. You said something bad about Auburn, so you hate Auburn. No, man, I said something critical of Auburn because that's fair to do.
Right.
You know, and that's what this is. This thing about the draft, it's a critique of how have we been developing players. You know, the stat that I would like to see, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not in the last 10 years have a draft where we had no players drafted?
I think
I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody in the comments will know the answer to this question. I want to say that we had a year where we had 0 players drafted in the last 10 years.
Thinking about right after the 2014 season.
Mm-hmm. There was a year where Auburn had no players drafted. And I think that, again, for a team that's been recruiting top 10 talent, I remember it distinctly because the Bambers were rubbing it in our faces that year. 0 players drafted. 2015,
Blake says.
0 players drafted. Forget first-round draft picks. Let's just talk about draft picks. I understand if a lot of us don't remember that because it's a forgettable. It's a thing you'd want to forget.
Mm-hmm.
It's a forgettable stat. 0 players drafted at a place like Auburn. That's in the middle of all those top recruiting classes that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
No guys, not a single guy. Wow.
Oh, that's right. Ed's right. It was Sammy Coates did get drafted after the 2014 season. He's right about that.
Was it
So it wasn't the 2015
he said 20
draft.
Yeah, there was a year where we had no guys in the draft, and I was just like, wow.
Blake says maybe it was 2012. So I don't know.
Or one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, the forget first round draft picks. Let's just talk about how low the numbers have been in general.
Yeah.
Draft picks. They're relatively low. I would venture to say that we're middle to bottom of the SEC in draft picks in general.
Yeah. Probably right in the middle of the pack. But again, at the top prior to this year, like we were always in the top of the league, the nation, where we finished with the prospects though. But we can't get them to stay here, and we can't get them to the draft.
Right.
Yeah, man, it just sucks, man. We've got like I'm looking forward to this season because I think that from where we are, there's a lot to look forward to.
Dang, look at the stuff that people are saying in this right here. 2013, only one guy got drafted.
Yep.
2012, only one guy got drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Right. Like, wow. Okay, so maybe the number wasn't 0, but wow.
Yeah.
Might as well have been.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Right? And, like, I mean, it was.
And then our record was plummeting from where people thought we were going to be as a program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. So, I mean, that's a hard recruiting pitch. Right? So, I think I can plug it now. I got to ask permission because I get in trouble with Brian when I plug things that we got.
Well, before we do that, Mike G, we do. Speaking of people who are gone and we wish them well, Jaren Handy, he entered the transfer portal, and we're going to talk more about that on this upcoming War Room live show with.
Nathan King from 247 Sports is going to join us to talk about some things all Auburn. So don't miss that in our Wednesday War Room coming up. I follow Nathan. He has some really interesting write-ups on position groups and is plugged into the program. So as part of the our engagement focus, we want to bring you guys more access to the program here. And it's funny when you're reading an article, the conversation goes one way. They write it, you read it. And very few of these guys actually respond to comments. Well, he's coming on to talk with us, which I'm humbled that, that these guys who are experts at their craft will come on. They spend a lot of time doing research and digging in to get us information that we then use to have discussion and debate on this show. But coming up, we filmed it already. It's in the bag. So Cooper Wallace Part 2 drops tomorrow for a lot of people. So if you are not an insider, Cooper Wallace Part 2, Heart of a Winner. This second part is if the first part was entertaining, the second part is doubly entertaining. So please go watch that. We got Chop It Up with a Pro coming up this Thursday with with Chris Todd. We'll be breaking down 8A film. So if you are an insider, become an insider for $5.99 so you can get access to that. We've got some premium content coming from you guys. Please hit our GoFundMe. You can find this link in the About section of our YouTube channel, as well as the link to our merch store. And lastly, not this Monday, but the following Monday, we are dropping a special building report segment with Josh Pate from 247 Sports. Josh came on to talk with myself and Caesar, and it was a tremendous conversation about the program. So we get a lot of homers to come on and talk. I always love to have unbiased, neutral third parties to come on and talk with us about everything Auburn. He had some very interesting takes, and I think that you guys will really enjoy that segment. So not this coming Monday, but the following Monday, we will drop that building rapport segment with Josh Pate. So definitely look out for that. Either.
And shout out to Ed Darby. It's Rocking, not rocking. It's Rocking. All right. No slang when it comes to Chris Todd, baby.
Oh,
Chris
you know
Todd,
what?
we love you, man.
I'm sorry.
We
You know
love you,
what?
Chris.
I'm going to give another special shout out to our guy, touchdowns to home runs.
We just filmed that segment.
Yeah, if you he is an SEC guy, great kid. So please go check out his channel. He covers baseball as well too, but he's an up and coming YouTuber. And he invited us on to do a schedule breakdown for Auburn. That dropped today at 3:00 on his channel. So I'll post the link in our community. But Ike and I went on with him to do a complete schedule breakdown of Auburn's schedule next year. Wins and losses. He had his own thoughts. There's some charts up that say where our guaranteed wins are, guaranteed losses, and then the toss-ups in the middle. So that was also a tremendous conversation as well too. Touchdowns to home runs on YouTube. Please go over there and click subscribe. He is an up-and-coming YouTuber and a friend of the show.
Yes, sir.
Indeed.
And
Man, we
one
appreciate
point
you
before
guys.
we get out,
Go ahead, B.
Caesar, because, of course, we talked about the risk of going versus coming with the draft. Dylan Moses at Alabama. I remember when he got recruited, and Bleacher Report did a little thing calling him like the LeBron James of football. And I was like, wow. And he got hurt. And then he came back, and of course they said, hey, man, come back. Now, I don't blame him. You would think, hey, if anybody knows how to repair my reputation with this injury and get me to the next level, it's got to be Nick Saban, right? Undrafted free agent. You never know. So to Mike's point, you do not know. Does anybody think there was a more sure bet to come back and do better than Dylan Moses would have been at Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It's always a gamble.
It is definitely a gamble.
Pros and cons with every decision, man. Pros and cons with every decision. And listen, these kids don't have the beauty of having the outcome along with their decision to make the decision. They just got to make the decision with what they know. Yeah. Right. The outcome comes later. So
so many moving parts.
Yeah, give these kids a break, man. But thank you guys for hanging out with us, man, for this live show. You know what to do, man. Let other people know that we're out here providing great content in the off season. If you're on Twitter, please add us at the War Rapport. You can also use, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, hashtag TWR Tailgate and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And I already mentioned. I think we're missing one, but yeah, you can hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at The War Rapport. We are TW Rapport on TikTok. Signing off, guys. Have a great week. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.